First contact and ultimatum. The quantum detection grid lit up like a Christmas tree exactly 48 hours before they arrived. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the readings, her hands trembling as she rechecked the calculations for the fifth time. The signal patterns were unmistakable. Multiple objects, massive in scale, had just emerged from what appeared to be artificial space-time distortions at the edge of the solar system. "Get me the Secretary General." She spoke into her secure line, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Authorization code: Starfall 793. The objects moved with impossible precision, crossing the distance between Neptune and Earth in less than 2 days. As they approached, every astronomical observatory on the planet captured images of the vessels, if that's what they were. They defied conventional geometry, their surfaces shifting and flowing like liquid metal while maintaining perfect formation. When they finally settled into Earth orbit, the largest of the objects positioned itself directly over the United Nations headquarters in New York. Its surface rippled with patterns that seemed to follow some alien mathematics, creating cascading waves of iridescent light that hypnotized anyone who stared too long. The message, when it came, bypassed every communication system on Earth. It simply appeared simultaneously in every human mind, in their native language with perfect clarity. "We are the hegemony. Your species has achieved sufficient technological advancement to warrant our attention. You will be evaluated for admission into our collective. Prepare your leaders for consultation." In the chaos that followed, Dr. Chen found herself rushed to New York, along with other key scientific advisors. The UN Security Council chamber had been hastily converted into humanity's first contact center, with representatives from every major nation present. The hegemony delegates materialized without warning. 3 beings that seemed to be composed of crystalline structures and flowing energy rather than matter. Their voices resonated directly in the minds of all present. "Your species stands at a crossroads," the central figure announced. "The galaxy is governed by order, by structure, by the hegemony. We offer you membership in our collective. Your technology, your resources, your minds will be standardized and optimized according to our protocols. This is not a request. This is your evolution." Dr. Chen studied the aliens intently, her trained eye catching something others might miss. Their energy patterns. There was something familiar about them, something she'd seen in her own research. The UN Secretary General stepped forward. "And if we decline this generous offer?" The chamber's temperature dropped several degrees as the central figure shifted its crystalline form. "Decline? You misunderstand. The hegemony does not make offers. We shape reality. We are inevitability. You have 30 days to prepare your world for integration. Resistance is..." The being paused, as if searching for the right word. "Impossible." They vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind only a small crystalline device that projected detailed specifications for the changes Earth would need to implement. In the stunned silence that followed, Dr. Chen approached the device, her mind racing. The patterns in its structure confirmed her suspicion. She had seen something like this before. In her own lab, in her own research. The hegemony had revealed their greatest weakness, and they didn't even know it. She caught the Secretary General's eye and gave a subtle nod. They needed to talk, privately. Because while the hegemony sought humans as primitive beings to be assimilated, they had overlooked something crucial. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology or resources. It was in its ability to see patterns others missed, to think in ways others couldn't, to imagine possibilities others never considered. And Dr. Sarah Chen had just spotted a possibility that would shake the foundations of the hegemony's perfect order. The hidden asset. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Chen stood before a gathered assembly of Earth's most brilliant minds and powerful leaders. Behind her, a holographic display showed the quantum consciousness patterns her team had been studying for the past decade. The hegemony's entire civilization is built on quantum crystalline technology, she explained, manipulating the display to show the alien device's structure alongside her own research. But they're using it wrong. They've turned it into a cage. The assembled crowd murmured as she brought up two models side by side. One showed the rigid, hierarchical pattern of the hegemony's quantum fields. The other displayed the organic, flowing structure of human consciousness. They've created a quantum network that enforces conformity, she continued. Every member species is connected, their thoughts and technologies standardized through these crystalline interfaces. It's elegant in a horrifying way, but it's also their vulnerability. Admiral Zhang leaned forward. Explain. Their technology doesn't just control communications or power generation. It shapes consciousness itself. They've created a quantum framework that forces all connected minds to think along predetermined patterns. It's how they maintain order across thousands of species and millions of light years. She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. But human consciousness doesn't work that way. We've been studying quantum consciousness patterns for years, trying to understand how human minds can maintain quantum coherence at room temperature, something that should be impossible. And we found something extraordinary. The hologram shifted to show brain scan data. Human minds are quantum computers, but we use chaos and uncertainty as features, not bugs. Our consciousness surfs the quantum foam, embracing randomness and possibility. We don't just think outside the box. We deny the existence of the box entirely. And this helps us how? The president of the African Union asked. Dr. Chen smiled. Because my team has developed a way to amplify and network human quantum consciousness patterns. The hegemony's technology is based on forcing order onto quantum systems. Ours, she pressed a button, and the hologram showed a new pattern, one that seemed to dance and flow with organic grace. Ours works with the natural quantum state of consciousness, and when their rigid system meets our fluid one. She brought the two patterns together in the simulation. The hegemony's crystalline structure tried to impose its order, but the human pattern flowed around and through it, gradually destabilizing the forced symmetry until the entire system transformed into something new and beautiful. Their technology can't adapt to true consciousness evolution, she concluded. They've been static for so long, they've forgotten how to change. But that's all humanity has ever done. Adapt, evolve, transform. We can use their own quantum network against them, not with brute force, but with the power of human consciousness itself. The room erupted in overlapping questions, but Admiral Zhang's voice cut through the chaos. How long to implement? We have the basic technology working in the lab, scaling it up to planetary levels. She ran the calculations in her head. 28 days. If we have every quantum lab on Earth working together. 2 days before their deadline. Someone muttered. It'll be enough, Dr. Chen said with quiet confidence. They expect us to either submit or try to fight them conventionally. They won't be looking for this. They can't even conceive of it. The Secretary General stood. Do it. Whatever resources you need, they're yours. But Dr. Chen, he paused, his expression grave. If this fails, she met his gaze steadily. It won't. The hegemony thinks they're coming to assimilate a primitive species. Instead, they're about to encounter something they've never seen before. Humanity, unchained. Project Mindweave. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Every quantum research facility on Earth had been converted to support Project Mindweave, as they now called it. Dr. Chen moved between labs in a constant cycle, coordinating efforts, solving problems, and pushing the boundaries of what everyone thought possible. The breakthrough came on day 23. Look at this. Dr. Patel, her colleague in Mumbai, pointed excitedly at his test results. On the screen, human consciousness patterns were successfully interfacing with a replica of the hegemony's quantum crystal, not just resisting its standardization protocols, but actively transforming them. How many test subjects? Dr. Chen asked, leaning closer to her video feed. 500 volunteers, all linked through the quantum network. When they worked together, he sent her the data. and she felt her heart race as she analyzed it. The human consciousness patterns weren't just maintaining their integrity. They were teaching the crystal new ways to process reality. Similar reports began flooding in from other labs. In Lagos, they'd achieved stable quantum coherence across a network of thousands. In Santiago, they'd found a way to amplify the effect exponentially. In Beijing, they'd successfully tested the system's resistance against simulated hegemony control protocols. But it was in her own lab beneath the Rockies where the final piece fell into place. It's not just about resistance, she explained to the project leaders during their daily briefing. We're not trying to fight their system. We're trying to evolve it. Look at these patterns. The display showed the merged consciousness of 10,000 volunteers, their quantum signatures dancing in harmony. Human minds naturally create new quantum states, new ways of thinking and being. When we link them together through our network, we become a quantum consciousness supersystem, Dr. Patel finished, his eyes wide with understanding. One that can rewrite the rules of their entire network. Exactly. The hegemony uses quantum technology to enforce stasis. We'll use it to introduce evolution. She brought up the latest simulation. When they try to connect us to their network, they won't be adding another controlled species. They'll be introducing chaos theory into their perfect order. Admiral Zhang, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. Will it hurt our people? The ones connected to the network. Dr. Chen shook her head. That's the beautiful part. We're not forcing anything. We're just allowing human consciousness to do what it naturally does. Explore, adapt, create. The volunteers report feeling more connected, more aware, but still completely individual. Unity without uniformity. The opposite of the hegemony's approach, the Secretary General mused. Precisely. They've spent millennia trying to control quantum reality. We've spent our entire existence learning to dance with it. The next few days were spent doing final testing and beginning the global rollout. Quantum consciousness amplifiers were installed in every major population center, carefully hidden from the hegemony surveillance. Millions of volunteers were linked into the growing network, their combined consciousness creating patterns of impossible beauty and complexity. Dr. Chen worked until she nearly collapsed, checking and double-checking every system. They would only get one chance at this, if it failed. But it wouldn't fail. She knew it with a certainty that went beyond mere confidence. She could feel it in the quantum network, in the combined potential of millions of human minds working in harmony while maintaining their precious individuality. The hegemony thought they were coming to impose order on chaos. Instead, they were about to learn why chaos was the mother of creation. The test. On the 30th day, the hegemony returned. Their ships descended from orbit in a display of power meant to awe and intimidate, their quantum crystalline surfaces refracting sunlight in mathematically perfect patterns. This time, they chose to manifest in the middle of Times Square, creating a spectacle for the whole world to witness. The crystalline beings emerged from a portal of pure energy, their forms somehow more rigid and imposing than before. Your time has expired. The central figure announced, its thoughts resonating across the global consciousness. We have detected no attempts to implement our protocols. This is disappointing, but not unexpected from such a primitive species. Dr. Chen stood calmly before them, surrounded by other world leaders. The quantum network hummed with potential, millions of linked minds waiting for her signal. We have an alternative proposal. The crystalline beings shifted, their patterns expressing what might have been amusement. There are no alternatives. There is only the hegemony. Your species will be standardized, or it will be eliminated. Those are the only possible outcomes. There's always another possibility, Dr. Chen said. You've just forgotten how to see them. She pressed a button on her quantum interface device. Across the planet, the hidden network activated. Millions of human minds linked together, their quantum consciousness patterns merging into something greater than the sum of its parts. The air itself seemed to shimmer with potential. The hegemony leaders reacted instantly, their forms bristling with energy. What is this? You dare to generate unauthorized quantum fields. We're not generating them, Dr. Chen corrected. We're setting them free. The human quantum network reached out, not attacking the hegemony systems, but embracing them, introducing chaos into order, possibility into certainty. The crystalline beings tried to assert control, tried to impose their rigid patterns, but human consciousness flowed around and through their defenses like water around rocks. Stop this, the central figure demanded, but there was something new in its mental voice now. Something that might have been fear. You cannot. This is not. Reality must have structure. Reality has all the structure it needs, Dr. Chen replied. You just need to learn to see it differently. Around them, the hegemony's quantum network was transforming. Their ships in orbit, their communication systems, their very consciousness, all of it was being exposed to something they had never encountered before. Truly free thought, unfettered creativity, the quantum dance of billions of minds, thinking in billions of different ways. The crystalline beings began to change, their rigid forms flowing into new configurations as the human consciousness network taught them possibilities they had never imagined. Some fought against it, trying desperately to maintain their old patterns. Others embraced the change, their forms becoming more organic, more alive. What are you doing to us? One of them asked, its mental voice filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. We're not doing anything to you, Dr. Chen said gently. We're showing you what you can do for yourselves. Your quantum network doesn't have to be a cage. It can be a canvas. Evolution's child. The transformation of the hegemony became known throughout the galaxy as the Great Awakening. Species that had been locked into rigid thought patterns for millennia suddenly found themselves free to explore new ways of thinking, new ways of being. Dr. Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's first faster-than-light ship, watching the quantum crystals that powered it pulse with organic rhythms. The technology was still based on the hegemony's original designs, but transformed by human consciousness into something new and beautiful. Ready for the first contact with the spiral arm colonies? Admiral Zhang asked, joining her at the window. She nodded. After the transformation, many former hegemony worlds had isolated themselves, needing time to rediscover their own unique consciousness patterns. Now, after 5 years, they were ready to begin reaching out again. It's strange, she mused. We spent so long looking up at the stars, wondering if we were alone, hoping to find others like us. Instead, we found others who needed us to remind them how to be themselves. The quantum network hummed around them, no longer a tool of control but a medium of connection. Through it, they could feel the distant thoughts of other species, each unique, each valuable, all contributing to the greater symphony of conscious existence. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not as conquerors or subjects, but as catalysts for change. The stars beckoned, and in the quantum dance of consciousness, every possibility waited to be born. The end.